Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the sports here on this live stream, but if it's orange and blue, we will talk about it here. So it's fair game, whatever is on your mind today. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. If you don't know me, my name is Kyle. I'm the editor of the E2C Network, which is a family of podcasts that cover the Auburn family spectrum and topics, anything and everything we'll talk about there on that podcast network, and including here on this YouTube channel, where we get together on a not so regular basis, just whenever I have the time to get together and talk with you all, because I do enjoy hearing from all of you and hearing your perspectives about what's obviously the topic that I have prepared today, but what else is on your mind. As you do come into the live stream, please do make sure you smash that like button, because it does help the stream out, helps other people find us and become part of our little family within the Auburn family. And if you haven't, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're continuing our journey on to 900 subscribers. Love to get there sooner rather than later. You guys can help us by doing those things to get to that point. All right, so on today's live stream, just a little preview of what we'll probably be discussing, I wanted to pose a question that's a little bit scary for Auburn fans out there. Would Bruce Pearl ever leave Auburn basketball? That is the question at hand. That is one that I want us to talk about. There's a reason for that, and we'll get into that. But anything that you want to talk about is fair game, so don't be shy. Ask questions, post comments in the chat window as you do come in. And as we go through the rest of our pre-show announcements, I want you to right now do our roll call, where you're watching from, city, state, international. Where are you watching from currently with the Big War Eagle? Do that right now. If you want to help support the content that we do here on this network, there are a couple ways you can do that. All of these links are listed in the description for this video, but also in the very top of the live chat window as well, especially the pinned one, the E2C Network Booster Club. It's a really easy way to help support what we do here for as little as $1 a month, and even at the $1 level, you get some pretty cool perks to go with that. So come on over and check that out, even if you're just curious of what's going on over there. You can actually sign up for it without being charged at the beginning of the month. Right now, to see if it's even something you're really interested in. So now's a good almost trial period to do that. We also encourage you to listen to the podcast, donate on PayPal if you'd like to do a one-time donation, or shop on our store. Speaking of which, I'm going to show you what I'm wearing today. You can kind of see a preview of it right there. Our TeePublic store has got $13 tees with our logo and some other Auburn and then generic designs there as well. We can support us and an independent artist. I am wearing, I remember I told you guys I was going to, you can kind of see it outside of the thing, and obviously my webcam doesn't do justice to it at this point, but I promise you these are good t-shirts. You can ask my wife. I wear this like all the time, and it's not just because I have to, because I'm trying to promote a brand, but I actually really like this shirt. So if you're interested in checking those out, those links are provided for you in the description. If you have any trouble with any of those links, please let me know. All right, that's all the stuff. That was a mouthful today. Got a good group assembling here already, it looks like. We've got Sam. He says boo for some reason. Are you trying to be scary or whatever? Bill Petty from Dothan. Stan says Sanford, Florida. Southeast Pennsylvania for Bruce. Bruce, is that you? Did you know we were talking about Bruce Pearl? Birmingham, Alabama for Sam. Jackson's Gap, Alabama for Larry. And there you go. Sam says, nice shirt. You might buy one. I appreciate that. Obviously, it does support what we do here. So if you're interested in those, and there's not just, like I said, there's not just this design, our logo on it. But there's some other stuff there that you might be. Some of it is like, you can't obviously be officially Auburn licensed stuff, but there's some artists that have done some things related to that I think you find interesting. For instance, on a recent podcast, I talked to an Auburn graphic designer who's just designed his first, not designed, written, illustrated his first children's book, where there's some Auburn ties in there. He also created something called Little Tiger Dude. It's not Aubie. It's not an Auburn thing, but it's by an Auburn person, so you know obviously the influence is there. It's a pretty cool design. That's up there as well if you want to support him and what he does. All right, let's talk about it. Anxiety inducing. I'm going to open it up to the floor for everybody who's here thus far. Do you think Bruce Pearl would ever leave Auburn? Your gut reaction, no him hawing around it, just yes or no in the chat window. That's what I want to know right now. Would Bruce Pearl ever leave Auburn? in your mind where things sit right now. Don't put that evil on me. I figured this would be kind of a bit of a, not a controversial topic, but one that would stir a few people up, especially, with the way things went with basketball this season. Would he ever leave? There is a reason I'm asking this as you guys think about that. Think as whether you actually want to post your answer or not. I think some of you are right now kind of like, I have an answer that I want to give, but I'm just kind of scared to actually speak it into existence, so to speak. Sam says no, that he does not think that Bruce Pearl would ever leave Auburn. I think there's some cases that you can make, either way on this topic. Until he retires, not until he retires. No for War Productions. Bruce says why? Why are we asking this, or why would he leave? All things we can talk about here. I will tell you this. I think Bruce Pearl is in a very unique situation. One that's probably, as far as we all know, very good for him. Do I think he would? I think it's unlikely. But the reason I'm asking this is and as, again, I'm not faulting them for doing this in any way. Please understand. I know they've got a job to do, but media personalities, bloggers, all this stuff they've got to get you to click and stuff like that. And so now is the time during the coaching search. If you got a passionate fan base like the Auburn family, then you can get them to click and search and do stuff. If you post things like, well, here's someone that I think should be considered for an open coaching search job, a major one. Oh, Bruce Pearl, right? So obviously when you see that, just know that's kind of what's going on there. But it's a good question asked, so I don't fault them for doing it, because it's a great thing to do that type of clickbaity type of stuff. But at the same time, I think you have to take a step back, and it seems like most of the people are doing this in the chat. Why would he leave? And that's what Bruce was clarifying. Why would he leave? For a better opportunity? Maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes we don't know. There's a lot of turmoil right now in terms of, not turmoil is not the right word. There's a lot of transition going on, and maybe he knows something we don't. I'm not saying it would happen. I'm just posing the question. This is what I do here, to kind of stoke the fires and get you all fired up. A. Robinson, Pearl ain't leaving. Imagine someone made a fake Bruce Pearl account and came to the stream. That'd be hilarious. Well, I pretty much know that Bruce Pearl, anytime I see someone that has like a name like that, it's not them. They'd never do anything like that. They're not, who's a good example of someone that would do that? I think Lane Kiffin might do that. I think, Mississippi State coach. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. Help me out, everybody. He might do that just to be funny. Don't read those articles, especially Saturday in the South. It's all fake. They hate Auburn. Well, of course, obviously I know that Playboy D, but, it's always fun to entertain the question. Because if there was a really, what I'm asking about is, the big news that Shaka Smart left Texas before he could get fired, because there were rumors that was going to happen, to go to what I think is going to be a better situation for him at Marquette. I think being a Texas basketball coach is it's one of those situations where it's really not going to work out. And for a long time, it seemed like that at Auburn, right? But not anymore. Not since Bruce Pearl got here. And I think that's part of the reason he would stay here. So that's what we're at. And there were some people circulating saying that, maybe Bruce Pearl, maybe a Eric Musselman from Arkansas. They were just throwing out coaches that maybe have potential to move somewhere else if they were not ultimately, long-term satisfied with where they were. So that's the question. Is he long-term satisfied here? No, unless the NCAA tries to strong arm Auburn regarding infractions out of his control and Auburn caved. I don't know that Auburn would cave on these. So it had to be something really, really bad here. I think Auburn right now recognizes, with the transition in football going on, with baseball and softball kind of being up and down. I mean, I know softball is more up than down. Baseball is more down than up right now. They recognize that Bruce Pearl's the hot commodity. I think they're going to do everything in their power to keep the guy that's got the entire fan base fired up right now, and consistently fired up, even during a down year when they couldn't compete as a whole, or compete on the postseason. If he ever left, he would go to UAB. Of course you would say that, Sam. You know, you're all about the Birmingham teams. I'm sorry he ain't going to UAB. Hate to break it to you. Apparently, A.E. Robinson wants it too. Exciting times on the plains. Yes, it is very exciting times. There's obviously a lot of optimism around football right now. Basketball, obviously, optimism high, and you know, with that success has come some frustrations for Auburn fans in terms of keeping players around. But that's what comes with the territory. A.E. Robinson, I think Pearl retires at Auburn. I could see that if there was a coach that wanted to retire at Auburn, I could see Coach Pearl doing that. I really could. Problem is, you know, can you blame a coach if a UNC, a Duke, a Kentucky, a Michigan State, I'm just throwing out names here at this point, other big blue bloods and things like that, comes calling at UCLA and says, hey, I know you've built yourself a nice little situation over there at Auburn. Why don't you come here where you ain't got to build jack squat? You don't have to maintain that. We get it no matter what. So is it one of those situations, if the right person, the right program, the right school came calling, would he go? So let me ask that question. Let's just entertain it. I know it's not fun, but just for speculative reasons. If there was a team that could pull Bruce Pearl from Auburn, who do you think it could be? Could it be Texas? I don't really see it, which was the whole premise of asking this question and doing this live stream. But I just don't really see it. But if there was one out there, who do you think it could be? You know, I have not, last couple weeks, haven't kept up with Auburn softball, but I can tell you this: they're probably doing better than Auburn baseball. They're not 0-6 in their conference, right? I don't think so. I think he would be fired before he would ever leave. This is not hate on Bruce Pearl, but I see it more likely that later on in his career he starts slowing down and he would look for a fresh restart. You know, I actually need to look and see how old he is. You know, we keep talking about retirement like he's like near that. I don't get the impression that he's anywhere near old enough to retire. But you know, like I said, I think Auburn I think there is a mutual understanding from the university and from Bruce Pearl that they are better together in terms of the basketball marriage. And I think that's what's made this work so well for so long. By the way, I see a lot of you are popping in. If you haven't, please consider hitting that like button. It does not only helps the stream, but it lets people know that we're live so they can come be a part of this as well. Oh no, you're gonna miss A-Day this year. It's a shame because I don't have official plans set. I'm hoping to get some of those together in the next coming weeks because I want to probably make some announcements where I'll not that you guys are coming to see me, but I would like to come and see and meet people that listen to the podcast, watch this YouTube channel, and do some of that stuff for you guys on campus that weekend. So I just say that I'd like to set up a situation where I would be like here for an hour or something like that, and we could all say, hey, what's up? I see you on the YouTube channels. I see you in the chat, all that good stuff. So I'm sad you're not going to be there. If he did leave, perhaps he could reunite with Malzahn at UCF. How weird would that be? Like, right? You want to talk about building a basketball program up? You know, I know UCF made the tournament last year or 2 years ago, when the last time we had one, but you know, they're not known as a perennial basketball power. He could leave. Shrug. I know you think you meant the shrug emoji. Vols are missing a Pearl. Yeah, I think I don't know that Coach Pearl wants to go down that route again. I think you could really see it when he first got here to Auburn. There was this sad what if look in his eyes when he would be back around the program and stuff like that. But I think it's not so much hurt anymore, but it's one of those things as I've closed that chapter on my life and he still looks fondly on that time at Tennessee, and I think it's best kept that way because it's almost like if you go back into that scenario at Tennessee, you dig up old history that probably has been long buried and calloused over to some degree. Just my impression. You know, I think that's the easy one to go to. Could Tennessee pull him back in? They would have a case. I just wouldn't see it. It would have to be a traditional blue blood. The old names, yeah, I think that would be a good one. Auburn softball is way better right now. Well, like I said, better in some degrees, start to conference play. I think Pearl is close to building something big at Auburn. So define that for me a little bit, AU Robinson. Give me what you mean by that, a little bit more specifics, because I think he's already built something big at Auburn. I honestly, in my wildest dreams, would have never guessed we'd already been at the Final Four. I would have never guessed that we would have multiple first-round picks with many more on the way. Like, if he had someone sniffing the second round, that would have been amazing to me. But multiple first-round picks, and then one in the top 5, and likely future top 5, top 10 picks coming very soon. I would have guessed that. Never. At least this soon. So I think he has built something big at Auburn. And I think that's why he wants to stay. One of the reasons. Or we aren't friends. That we'll still be friends if you don't like. It's always funny because, and I look, I know you're not supposed to give attention to these people, but they will do it at some point. I don't think they hardly even watch anything. There's always one person that dislikes every video, and it's hilarious to me because I think they realize they're hurting the stream, but they actually help the stream. In fact, I do a separate YouTube channel for something completely different. We got like so many dislikes on it for what I don't even know what the reason was for. And it like propelled to one of our most popular videos because people were interacting with it. So if you really want to hurt the YouTube channel and the stream, don't like it. But anyway, sorry. That's just a little quick aside there. A-Day on TV. Normally they do it on TV. It really depends on who else is doing their spring game that day. Auburn's a pretty high commodity, a pretty big commodity. So I would suspect that is. Oh, actually, I think it's going to be on the SEC Network Plus, I think, if I remember that correctly, which means you don't have the right package, you're not going to get it. That could change, but I think that's what I heard. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Any word on if we'll be treated as adults and be allowed at A-Day yet? Would love to go. So here's the issue, Dusty. I'm not saying I don't disagree with you on that sarcasm there, but it's a state-run school. They have to go by what the government says, and unfortunately, that's what it is. So will you be treated as adults and be allowed to go? Yes. But will you be allowed to go and not wear masks, all that stuff? No. Not when they're a state-run school. You'd have to be a private institution for that to be overruled. Be a private property and all that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, there will be restrictions. The beauty of this is we have an A-Day game, barring crazy crap hitting the fan the last couple of weeks here towards it. The big programs will not touch him a lot like Jacobs. Will not touch him a lot like why Jacobs could not consider Bobby Petrino because of the controversy. Look, I don't know if you were a fan of the Bobby Petrino thing or not, but there was this camp that Bobby Petrino fans that just held that banner forever. Bobby Petrino wasn't being considered. I mean, not just from the whole controversy thing. He was not a good choice. I'm sorry, he wasn't. Ever. Anyway, that's not a rabbit hole I need to go down. He'll make Auburn a blue blood before he's done. I think he already has in some degree. The fact that, when you hear on national commentary about March Madness, this is just a weird tournament because we don't have the likes of Duke, and we don't have Kentucky, and we don't have Auburn. That's been said. That's not me just putting my orange and blue glasses on saying it. That's national commentary. And that's not even Charles Barkley saying that. That is other commentators saying, hey, we don't have these other teams. This is just a unique year. So we are, maybe we're not like truly a blue blood, but we are in the conversation with them, which is something that Auburn has not done on a consistent basis, ever. I wouldn't take that away from Coach Sonny Smith and even Cliff Ellis to some degree for a short time. But, yeah. All right, we got a confirmation on pay-per-view. Is it pay-per-view or is it the SEC Network Plus, which is technically pay-per-view because you have to pay a certain package, all that good stuff. Pearl has already built Auburn basketball to its highest level in our history. All right, well, nobody actually specifically answered my question, but if you think there is give me one program, one specific, not a big, like, say it would have to be a big name, that you think could pull Bruce away from us, legitimately. It ain't Texas, at least that I think. Of course, I've said that. News is going to break in 5 seconds, as it tends to do on this live stream, that he is leaving, which would just be the icing on the cake for a not-so-fun year of Auburn basketball. I guess the people that dislike can be friends, too. Of course. I only point it out every once in a while because I just find it comical. Let's see. It doesn't have to do with Auburn, but I find it funny that Houston's path to the Final Four is a 15 seed, 10 seed, 11 seed, 12 seed. Yeah, so obviously, look, never be shy to bring up things that even aren't Auburn related. We can always tie it back to Auburn in some way. This is more about us connecting as the Auburn family, so don't be shy about that stuff. So don't worry about it. Yeah, that is hilarious. Same thing for Alabama. They are getting an easy path to the Final Four, unfortunately. And while I predicted them to go no further than the Sweet 16, now after seeing how things have shaken out, it's looking likely for them. Which just sucks. It really, really, really does. Houston, they looked pretty decent yesterday. Baylor's starting to really... Baylor was already good coming into the tournament. And I've picked them to win the whole thing. I'm not just saying that, but I really think they're starting to kind of get that wheels turning that you need to happen in the NCAA tournament like Auburn did. So I think Baylor's on fire, and I think that's what's going to propel them ultimately over. You're going to all think I'm crazy here. I have Michigan versus Baylor in the championship game, with Baylor winning handily, I think is what my score was. But anyway, interesting paths all the way around. Yeah, I think it's SEC Network, but I think it's SEC Network Plus. I could be wrong, though. One thing that made the basketball program and helped Pearl and what's wrong with football is the $84 million basketball arena. I cannot even come up with one program who built a new arena. Absolutely. So facilities, it's a arms race, right? Part of the reason Auburn football fell behind under Gus Malzahn in terms of recruiting, and he still was recruiting on a pretty consistent, outside of last year, pretty good basis, was we didn't have the facilities to compete with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Tennessees, the LSUs. I'm not going to talk about the Mississippi States because Mississippi schools, they're just over there. The Floridas, things of that nature. Arkansas, Texas A&M. So, yes, there are other factors there, but a humongous reason is because that money was kept from Coach Malzahn, and he had to put up his own money for that type of thing too. And is he honoring it? I don't know. That's a great question. I'd love to ask him. But Coach Pearl has definitely benefited from that. Auburn will win the national championship in football and basketball in 2022. It's quite a step out. Don't know if I agree with it. But hey, if it happens, you called it first. Some people are disagreeing with you, saying I don't know if we'll win a Elite Eight. I think Auburn obviously makes the tournament next year. If who is here stays here and everybody else comes in, works out, no other issues, the roster stays as it should, barring changes and things, Auburn's a as close to a lock-in on the tournament as you can be, and should be a Sweet 16 team. I would think so. Obviously, you can't depend on. You'd have to wait and see how the rankings shake out, the seeding shakes out, but it's pretty obvious. Oh, okay, sorry, and I know I'm getting behind in chat, and I'm going to keep catching up because we've got a great crowd assembling here. Thank y'all so much for hitting that like button, those of you that have done that, because it's really helped. And I got to apologize to Auburn Elvis, too, because he is our guy on the podcast network for War Horses, our Auburn Equestrian podcast. We are SEC champions for 3 years, what should have been 4 years in a row. I say it should have been 4. If you missed yesterday, as we talked about this, technically it did. The tournament for last year got canceled. The SEC announced Auburn as their champions, but because they didn't participate in the tournament, it kind of wasn't like a formal situation. but we are officially 3 year in a row, three-peat SEC equestrian champions. So everybody, you should celebrate that and be so excited about an SEC championship, because we are literally a dynasty in the sport. We are definitely not a blue blood yet in basketball, but in 2 to 3 years we will be. If we stay on this pace, I would agree with you. Kansas, how did I forget Kansas? Kansas could pull them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that a Kansas could. I think a Kentucky could pull them away. I think a Duke could pull him away. Kansas doesn't fit Bruce for some reason. And that's a good one. Now, I wouldn't consider them a blue blood, but I would consider them a historic program. He's got some ties up there in the Midwest. If an Illinois or an Indiana called, that might be a tough one. That's a good answer, Bruce. Which is ironic that that's your name. Nobody will put Bruce away. Stays out of trouble. He can retire to AU as a man. Godfather of Auburn hoops kind of thing. I think he would, if I had to compare, let's just play this thing out, say everything stays the same. We'd probably look at Sonny Smith as the Shug Jordan of Auburn basketball. You'd probably look at, if Bruce Pearl continued his time, the Pat Dye. Because those are our two legends of football. We have many legends, but the two that we hold up on this pedestal. We will hold up Sonny Smith, and we will hold up Bruce Pearl as the legends of basketball if it maintains. If you disagree with that, just share me who you think the picture fits better with, what coaching legends it fits better with. A lot of Bama fans are talking about how they beat the Auburn Final Four. Oh, Bama fans! I haven't seen that, but I just find that hilarious. Don't even bother with that. Yeah, just don't even give them the time of day. Let's see. Michigan doesn't have their best player and has been struggling in the tournament. Yeah, I know that's why it's not a smart decision. I know that wasn't a smart decision. Yeah, so AU, so what I'll agree with you on this is I think we all agree that he was not a bad recruiter. He was actually a fairly good recruiter, consistently in the top 10 for most part, barring last year, and then I think like 1 year in the middle where recruiting was just really crazy. But yes, ultimately the offensive line falls on him, and it ultimately falls on his decision to hire Herb Hand. The worst decision he made, and he did it again at UCF. For those of you that get tired of me preaching about Coach Malzahn, hear me again. I am criticizing openly, fervently, for him hiring Herb Hand at Auburn and doing it at UCF again. I keep saying USC. UCF again. Learn from the mistakes. Okay. Florida thinks that they lack in facilities. Now, if we're talking about football, the stadium, if you've ever been to the Swamp, in the stadium, like looking at the field, amazing experience. One of the best college football experiences I've ever had. Getting in there, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Basketball, so they wouldn't let us in to the actual bowl of the arena, but it did look fairly old on the outer parts of it that we got to walk inside, and on the outside of it. So maybe they are a little bit behind in that aspect, but it didn't stick out like a sore thumb to me. It just looked like a modern, nothing really fancy, obviously nothing to Auburn standards facility. Where you go for Auburn Equestrian and now to win the whole thing? It looks very likely, doesn't it? Such a joy that program is. I don't know, and I don't believe it, but you asked, and Pearl is from New York, so I heard, so maybe Syracuse. I kind of put Syracuse like below a Kansas for me in terms of likelihood for that to happen. I think, yeah, he does have ties to New York, but I think because of his coaching time at Southern Illinois and in that vicinity, up in Milwaukee and all that kind of stuff, I think Indiana's weird because the state itself is almost like a annexed southern state, whether you talk about politics, all that kind of stuff. It would be like a good meshing for him. So if there was going to be a non-blue blood, but like a basketball legend to pull him away, I think Indiana could do it. Bruce, who brought that up earlier, that was a great point. Maybe the equestrian coach could coach football. Well, I mean, sure. Don't know how that would work, but he's successful. All right, so Kevlar disagrees. Fair point here. Joel Leaves would be the Shug Jordan of Auburn basketball. Sonny Smith was the Pat Dye. It's not the worst analogy ever, but I still lean more with what I said. Of course, it's my opinion, so obviously I would lean more with that. But I see it's not a bad point, though, Kevlar. Yeah, and remember, too, Shug was a basketball coach, too, for some time as well. So, anyway. Joe, what's going on, my man? Good to see you. Joe is one of our E2C Network Booster Club members. I'm going to embarrass him for a second. Thank you so much for your patronage over there on our Patreon, the E2C Network Booster Club. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. It's pinned in the chat window if you want to check that out. It is actually, you won't get charged at the beginning of the month. So if you want to check it out, see what we do in there for you guys, see all the perks that are available, now's the time to do it. It's really cheap. You get some good stuff with it. So yeah, I'm kind of worried about that for old Gus, but it's his choice. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'd be glad to be wrong, but I don't know. Oh boy, this is gonna get me upset. I love Shug, and he was very consistent. But my problem is he only had one, should be two, conference championship in 25 years. So all right. War Productions, you're going to get me in trouble with all the people that hate that I have the audacity to speak kindly of Gus Malzahn. But my biggest argument about keeping him and stability and stuff was back to Shug Jordan. We hold Shug up as a legendary coach. But if you look at his record, outside of, 30 years as Auburn coach or something like that, maybe 20s, upper 20s. 7, 8, maybe 10 of those are outstanding, like what you would put in legendary status. The rest, what people love to call Gus Malzahn, mediocre. But yet somehow we hold him up as this legend. Find that ironic. What if Shug was here this day? What would we be saying about him? I know it's different times, different eras. I get all that. So I know that some of y'all are even typing that right now on the replay probably because you're like, oh, I'm gonna hurt his opinion there on that. But just think about that. It's a great point to bring up. Alabama is the king of sports during pandemic seasons. Well, I mean, it's easier, right? Casey, what's going on? See ya. Bruce would never leave. He's at home. He's at peace. He would never leave Auburn. We are winning in our national championship contenders. Fair points all the way around. I would say Eric Musselman probably is much more likely than Bruce Pearl. But even that, I mean, the question we're asking here is somewhat of an obvious question. There's no real threat that we can find, knocking on wood, as of this moment. But it's just a fun one to ask because you need to acknowledge that at this moment, we're not the hottest ticket in basketball. We could be at some point, especially with Coach Bruce Pearl here. But if a Kentucky comes calling, if a Duke comes calling, if a UNC comes calling, if an Indiana, that's a scary one actually now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that's a good one. That could change things. Bruce will be at Auburn for 20 more years. Nate Oates will leave for the Indiana job. Potentially. Nate Oates, I think, is not going to be one of those ones that last forever at Alabama. Nate Oakes. I know you didn't intend that, but that's a nice little Auburn pun in there with that. But let's talk about it this way. Nate Oates, I think, is he is being the beneficiary of what we can tell of what you see happen a lot with programs. New life is injected. This is what, mark my words, this is what you're going to see happen in year 2 with Brian Harsin. New life, new blood is injected into the program, and there's this upstart feeling. What really happens and what really solidifies somebody is what happens in year 4 and then after that point. But year 2, I don't really put much stock in 1 and 2 and maybe even 3. Year 4, when they have a full recruiting cycle, see what they're building. Really, year 5. That's the true test if someone's overrated or not. So right now, it's easy for them to make the, oh, Nate Oates is the greatest thing in basketball. How many times have we said that before? There's some coaches that you probably can't even remember that were once said about that. Let's see. Yeah, I probably better leave the whole Gus thing alone before I get people upset again. But yeah, so we can hash that again another day. I think Alabama tried to start an equestrian team. Not sure if they continue with that effort. So let me give you a little background on that, Kevlar. It's actually, I had fun with this, and Auburn Elvis, who is again, if you haven't listened to War Horses, it's our Auburn Equestrian podcast, the only equestrian podcast out there that I know of, the only college equestrian, and the only Auburn equestrian podcast out there. It's on the main feed. You can find it there. We post the episodes up here. So we will definitely have an SEC championship edition coming out this week, probably Tuesday. Alabama was investigating and trying to, and they borrowed our horses but apparently that is a common practice in the equestrian world, because think how much money, equipment it takes to transport horses across the country. So really, you use the horses at that facility. Doesn't take anything away from how great our horses are and all that kind of stuff, but just remember that. It is fun. We can have a little fun with it, but it's not so much that we had to help them out. It's a traditional practice. But yeah, I have not heard of an exhibition match with Auburn and Alabama in 2 years, and that's the last time that happened. So I would suspect the fervor was not there for it that they wanted. Didn't want to get embarrassed. Probably, yeah. There's a little of that always playing in there. The question is, who will take over the Alabama head coach's job when Nate Oates leaves? But who is out there? He might leave. I don't think so. Nate Oates is one of those that recognizes when he's in a good situation, he's not anywhere near leaving, that I think. Of course, again, I say that. News will break in 5 seconds that that's not true. How about golf? I will be honest with you. I have not paid attention to the golf as strongly as I should have this year. I know they've won a couple of tournaments, I think both men and women's. In the past, we've had some pretty good finishes at the end of the year. I think it was women's that was in the semifinals of championships. I think we had a guy that was individually competing for a championship at the end. But yeah. By the way, I will do this pitch out there. This is a network. This channel is not primarily what we do, but our podcast network. We want to have a show and people talking about and covering every aspect of the Auburn family spectrum, every sport, any topic out there. So if you're someone that's interested in doing a short version podcast of the golf program, the tennis program, the gymnastics program, the women's basketball program, we don't have softball, we don't have baseball right now, we don't have recruiting, we got all these things. So if you're interested or you know someone that would do a good job at it, shoot me a message. We'll talk. We've got a lot of openings. And even if you don't want to do podcasting, we do blogs and articles. This is a network by the fans for the fans. So if you want to be a part of that vision, you can obviously shoot a message towards us. And by the way, the Booster Club members get invites to be guests on shows if they'd like to, as well as featured on their own episode of Auburn Roots. So check it out up there in the top of the chat window, pinned up there if you want to see what that's all about. They want to challenge our horses with their rowing team. Yeah, the pitching situation, at least the back end of the pitching situation, is getting a little frustrating for softball and baseball. Not happy times there right now. All right, let me do this. I'm not going to leave right now. Most of you who've been here for a while know the drill here. Smash that like button if you haven't. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. We're going to do our last-minute announcements. Final questions and comments. Bring them in right now. Ways you can help support the podcast. All of this stuff is in the description of the video, but in the very top of the chat window too. So check all that out. If you'd like to, the Booster Club we've talked about, PayPal donations, the TeePublic store, and you can listen to the podcast anywhere. Speaking of which, we have a sale going on with our t-shirt, which I'm wearing. You can see a little bit better up close and version of it there, where you can find some other Auburn-related, sports-related gear there as well. And it's not just t-shirts they sell at TeePublic, but there's all kinds of other things there. That's just the big thing. It's a really good price for this t-shirt, this quality. It feels good. I'm wearing it right now. There's our logo on it. If you have trouble accessing that, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you out. But I can't stress this enough. I know that sounds, I'm a salesman here, and this sounds, I have to say this because it's my logo, my shirt, all that good stuff. But I'm not just saying that. This is a good t-shirt. My wife, when I got one, she was like, okay, now you got to buy me one because I need one like that too. All right, let's see. Alabama's not ashamed to say they are a football school. Think about it. It's almost a sin for a college to say that publicly now. Academics frown on football. We need to care more about who we are. Absolutely. And who we are is, more than just sports. We are a family that cares about us as individuals, us as smaller groups, and as a collective. And I think that's what's so special about us. Now, again, we don't sit here and ignore the reality that football drives everything and sports drives everything. But if that's all you put your hope in, and I'm getting into some philosophical, maybe even some spiritual things that, obviously I know some of you probably aren't interested in here, but, you must put your hope in something much greater than one individual thing, or it'll never be enough. All right, enough of my soapbox. He was about 100 years ago, but where would you rank Donahue? Great question. I've heard some people describe Donahue as the father of Auburn football. Not so much. The founder obviously would be George Petrie. I've tried to make a case for myself to move Pat Dye up above Suge, and I think I could make a case for that. I'm getting to that answer. Sorry, this is the way I do it. I think Suge's still up there. I think Pat's clearly number 2, if not like 1B. I'd say Donahue's probably number 3. And then George Petrie simply because the fact it wouldn't exist without him. And then you start getting into discussions about like Tommy Tuberville. Where does Gus and Gene and all them rank in that? And Terry Bowden, isn't that kind of... I'd probably put, based on their body of work, Gus, Gene, and Terry all in the same categories. I think Gene kind of gets a huge knock-up because of the championship. I think Gus gets a huge knock-up because of the time he was here as an offensive coordinator with bringing Cam here, all that stuff, what he did with that, what he did early on here. I think Terry, because of how he started, both of those, all of those are like high trajectory at the beginning and then kind of fell off a little bit to some degree. Those kind of fall all in the same category. So I'd probably put Donahue in the top 3. I think that's a fair statement. Tell me if you disagree. Equestrian got state-of-the-art barns lately. Are we a horse school or a football school? We get all kind of dual-threat 5-star horses. Horses always stay the same until they get too old. The athletes, the human athletes are the ones that change, which he does an excellent job of recruiting. I did not get it. By the way, I hope everybody's still doing okay with all the aftermath of the storms. I know another system rolled through, hit us just a little while ago. That's why I was able to go live now. So I hope everybody's still doing okay. Which coach are you looking at to replace Flo in the tournament? Are you looking at what coach should be scouting out for? I haven't honestly looked. I think, honestly, we're probably best served to just wait till everything fleshes out there, at least till they get to the kind of where we are with men's, the Elite 8 area where the bulk of them are out. I would like us to spend some money, though, because clearly we have it. That's not up for debate. I'm a War Eagle Pentecostal. There you go. You are cracking people up with all the 5-star horses joke. We are one of the schools that had John Heisman as a coach too. But John was so, yes, and I'm not taking away John Heisman, his time here, but it was so short. He's in the top 10. I just think, and I think same thing as for George Petrie. He was short too, but he's the founder, so he needs to be in the top 5, I think. But yeah. Yeah, we're the AU family, but since we play sports, I want national championships. Got right to the point there. It would be funny if they gave out awards for all the horses, but I don't think they do that. All right, everybody. I think I'm going to have to say goodbye. I got to go eat some lunch, but thank you all so much for being part of this impromptu live stream. Make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell marked because you never know when we'll go live again. Thinking about trying to do some stuff maybe on, definitely not this Monday because March Madness is still going on. Maybe on a Wednesday. We'll talk. I'll keep you updated, but stay tuned on the podcast. Lots of great content. Another Auburn Roots is coming out this week. The new Booster Club members will know who that is before anybody else, if I haven't told them already. We've got War Horses, Tiger Tracks, No Huddle, Inside the Jungle potentially coming out. Auburn Roots, as I've already said. Lots of content out there you don't want to miss out on. So subscribe, notification bell, subscribe to the podcast too, like button on the way out. Thank y'all so much. Talk to y'all very soon. War Eagle.